Hi guys, Brittany here from By Brittany Goldwyn. I post videos about plants and projects, and today we are talking about fire curing bamboo so we can use it around the garden for trellises and other vertical growing solutions. So my cousin messaged me the other week and said, I'm going over to my dad's house to cut down some bamboo to use in the garden. Do you want any? And I said, how much is too much to ask for? Because I had no idea how mature his plants were, how big, how much they had spread. And as you can see here, he has quite the plentiful supply of very mature bamboo. So I went over there with my cousin and we worked for a couple hours cutting down some of the thickest bamboo shoots. Here's one of them that has not been cured yet, still nice and green, and dragging them out to the yard and then pulling off all of the stems and leaves from the poles before we cut them down so that they would be able to fit in my car. Now it's perfectly fine just to use the green stems that you let air dry for a couple months, or honestly that you have cut down and have not let dry at all, because as you can hear, even when they're freshly cut, they're very sturdy. But if you cure the pieces, that will allow them a little bit more resistance to the elements when they're outside, in the rain, in the sun, in wet soil. And one way to do that is by fire curing. What fire curing will do is it will heat up the poles and bring the sugary resins that are in the bamboo stems up to the surface. You can then grab a rag and rub them back into the pole, essentially creating a bit of a protective coat on the pole. So what I'm going to be doing this year is fire curing a couple of my poles for use with tomato cages, and I'm also going to be just putting a couple of the poles back in my shed to air dry. Then I'll be able to evaluate if the process is really worth it for me and if it does make a significant difference in how much longer the bamboo stems last when using them for trellises in the garden. So let's get started. All right, I am down in my basement now. I have one piece of the bamboo. It has been sitting in my shed for maybe about a week, so definitely not nearly long enough to air dry. It's still pretty green, a little bit yellow, but man, this thing is pretty hefty even without any drying. So I'm going to try to dry this one over our fire pit, or cure it over our fire pit to help it last for longer. And the first thing I'm going to do is drill a hole between each of these rings. So on the inside of the bamboo, this part where there's a ring is actually solid. So it doesn't go all the way through. If you were to put water in the very top of this bamboo pole, it would not flow all the way down. It would stop right here. So if you don't hollow out the inside of your bamboo pole, which I'm not doing because mine are really long and I don't have anything long enough to hollow it out, you'll need to drill holes between each of these rings. And that means that will allow the air to escape and not explode when I am curing this over a fire. So that is definitely an important step I'm going to be taking, drilling holes for air circulation so that pressure can't build up between each of these bands, including on the end here, because even though it is cut, there's still a little bit of blockage right here. So I'm going to be drilling them between each one. And I am going to choose to drill all the way through down here and then out the bottom, because why not? That'll just give me a little bit more air circulation. All right, so that's all the way through. Now you can hear the way that that hits the table, and the force it takes to drill through is actually pretty incredible considering this is still not dry at all. Okay, now that I have my long piece of bamboo out here with all of the holes drilled in each of the chambers throughout the whole stem, I am going to cure it. I'm going to use this propane torch and go section by section, curing it with the fire, the heat from this blowtorch. Now what that's going to do is it's going to bring the resins out from inside of the bamboo. You'll see them sparkling on the surface. I'll show you in a second. And then you'll take a rag and rub those resins back in. And this will help to dry out and cure the bamboo and protect it for longer. Here's a look at what it looks like before putting any of the fire on it. Perfectly green, just cut this down a couple weeks ago. Now I'm going to light my torch. So as you can see here, some of the resins are starting to come out. Now this is just the very beginning of the process. You can see them bubbling up and coming to the surface. And as you continue applying heat here, you can see it beginning to change color. It goes from its normal green to a yellowish to a brownish burnt looking color. Now the resin is a little bit more concentrated here in these joint areas. So those on my bamboo pieces are generally going to look a little bit more brown and burnt because I'm going to hit them a little bit harder than I would the rest of the stem. You can see on this side, even though I was not applying heat to it, some of those resins are already starting to come out of the bamboo and make it look a bit shinier. You can see the difference between here and here, and those are just areas where I've already started to apply some of that heat. Again, you can see the resins coming to the surface. And since I'll just be using these for trellises outside, I'm not too concerned with how they look, the uniformity of the color. I just want them to be as cured as possible and as dry as possible when I put them down into the soil. Okay, now my hand is starting to cramp up and it is starting to get very cold out here. So I'm going to show you what we are left with. I have these two, I'd say roughly 10 feet long, thick bamboo poles that I have finished fire curing. Now I'm going to take these inside and put them in the basement and just let them sit until I need to install them. I'm going to put them in just like I would a fence post or any other pole in the garden and attach a wire frame to them for my tomatoes to grow up. Now, if you have experience curing bamboo, drying bamboo, please drop your tips in the comments below. I'm very new to this, but I'm super happy with how cool these look, and it saved me a couple bucks buying a new trellis. And until next time, happy planting!